10.
Jacob, how's it going?
Good. We are on chapter 10.
We are in chapter 10. Sorry, I did not. I was going through the AI summary that I put in. It's helpful, but I wasn't able to go through the whole thing. But wow, we're starting a new midah.
Nikiyut. Correct.
Nikiyut.
What do they call? They're calling it cleanliness. Okay.
Cleanliness. Just pretty straightforward.
Well, we will see. I believe it's my turn.
It's your turn. Okay.
Be'ur midat hanekiyut, clarifying this characteristic of cleanliness. Midat hanekiyut, hi hayot ha'adam naki legamre mikol midat ra'a umikol chet. It is for a person to be clean completely from any bad attribute and from all sins. And surprisingly, he's including chet, not pesha. So these are even errors and stuff that we don't believe it's possible for a person not to have any. Okay. Lo dai mima shahachet bo mefursam vegalui, ela gam ken mima shahalev nifteh bo lahorot heter badavar. So it's not good enough from those sins that are well known and revealed, but also those that the heart is seduced by, to tell it that it is something that is allowed. Sheka'asher nachkor alav be'emet, that when we look at it truly, nimtza shelo haya haheter hahu nir'eh lo, that it wasn't actually allowed like what appeared to him. Ela mipnei heyot halev adayin nagua katsat min hata'ava, but rather his heart was still plagued by his lust. Kilot tahar mimena mikol vakol, he had not completely purified himself from it. Aken timshachehu lahakello, and therefore it draws him to permit it.
Oh yeah, draws him to like almost seducing him. I guess.
Right. Yeah. To be lenient, it pulled him. Yeah. Ach ha'adam asher tahar mizeh hanega legamre, but somebody who has actually cleansed himself completely of this affliction, v'naki mikol roshem ra, and who is clean from any imprint of evil, shemash'eret hata'ava achareha, that mash'eret leaves,
misharat, like the leftover.
Yeah, leaves behind. Okay, that leaves. Oh, okay. Roshem ra shemash'eret hata'ava achareha. Right. So evil leaves behind it a lust. Hine reyato tihye bara legamre. His vision will be completely clear. V'havchanato zaka, and his discernment refined. V'lo tat'ehu hachemda l'shum davar, and his how they usually covetousness. Yeah, lo tachmod usually gets translated as do not covet.
Do not covet, yeah.
Yeah. So, and his covetousness will not cause him to err in any way. Ela kol ma shehu chet. Any time that he sins, afilu sheyihyeh kal shebekalei hachataim, even if it be the least of the sins, hatirehu shehu ra, he will recognize that it's something evil. V'tarchikehu mimenu, and he will distance himself from it.
So what is he's saying? Tarchikehu. It's like it, like she, meaning like he's referring to something other than the person. No, but what is tarchikeo mimenu? Tarchikeo refers to a feminine noun here. What is this feminine, right? Tarchikeo? Takireo? Tarchikeo? חמדה? כן, כמו שהוא חד איפה שיהיה קש בקן, תכירהו שהוא רע, no, it can't be the חמדה.
Don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know. וכלשון הזה אמרו חכמים על השלמים המטהרים מעשיהם טהרה רבה שלא יהיה בהם אפילו נדנוד דבר. And this is how our sages described someone who was complete in purifying himself and his deeds with a great purity, that there shouldn't be even a little bit of evil. Nikiyeh hada'at shebeyerushalayim, in the Talmud Sanhedrin, they talk about those who are clean of knowledge, who live in Jerusalem. Vehincha ro'eh ata hahefresh bein hazahir vehanaki. So this is how you can tell the difference between someone who is cautious, careful, and someone who is clean. Af al pi shekrovim hem ze laze beinyanam, even though these are matters that are very close to each other. Hazahir hu hanizhar b'ma'asav, a watchful person, a careful person is watchful in what he does. V'ro'eh shelo yachta b'ma shekavar noda lo u'mefursam etzel hakol hiyoto chet. He makes sure that he doesn't do that which everyone knows is forbidden and it's publicized that it's a sin. Amnam adayin einenu adon ba'atzmo shelo yimashech libo min hata'ava hativ'it. Yet he hasn't yet mastered himself so that he would not be drawn by his heart towards his natural lusts.
So,
yeah,
would this map all of it to like the Zahir is more like the Benoni, or Rasha v'Tovlo maybe, and this Naki is closer to the Tzaddik.
It seems to me that here by Naki, he seems to be, well, I mean, it's different things, because it seems mostly like he's talking about somebody who's already maybe a tzaddik viralo. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're asking me questions I don't know the answers of.
Where's Donnie?
That's the question I also don't know the answers of. Okay. Shelot hatehu laharot lo heterim be'eze devarim she'ein ra'atam mefursemet. That he that it's not going to cause him to err, to show him ways that would be allowed in things that their evil isn't well known by everyone. וזה כי אף על פי שהוא משתדל לכבוש את יצרו ולכפות את תאוותו, and this, that even though he tries to conquer his evil inclination and to force his lusts, לא מפני זה ישנה את טבעו ולא יוכל להסיר מליבו התאווה, right? That doesn't change a person's very nature, and he can't remove hagufanit, can't remove these bodily lusts from his heart. אלא שיכבוש אותה וילך אחר החוכמה ולא אחריה. Unless that he completely conquers it and goes after the wisdom, and and not after achareha. I think he means ta'ava. Ach al kol panim cheshek hachomriot עושה את שלו להסיתו לפתתו. So, but the material desire, right? It does what it does to seduce him and to seduce him. Yeah.
Divert him,
entice and seduce him. Yeah. Amnam, however, אחר שיתרגל האדם הרגל גדול, when a person becomes very accustomed to בזהירות הזה, עד שינקה ניקיון ראשון מן החטאים המפורסמים, right? If he's very careful until he is cleansed in a primary way of cleaning from the well-known sins, וירגיל עצמו בעבודה ובזריזותה, and he accustoms himself to divine service and alacrity in it, right? Doing it with zeal. ותגבר בו האהבה אל בוראו והחמדה אליו, and the love of his creator overpowers him, and the desire for it. הנה כוח ההרגל הזה ירחיק אותו מענייני החומר. This, the power of this being accustomed, will distance him from those matters of materiality. וידביק דעתו אל השלמות, and his mind will cling to wholeness, hanafshi'i, spiritual wholeness, עד שסוף סוף יוכל להגיע אל הניקיון השלם, until after a while he will in the end be able to reach this complete cleanliness. שכבר יכבה אש התאווה הגופנית מליבו, that the fire of lust will already be extinguished from his heart. בהתגבר בו החמדה האלוקית, in that it was overwhelmed by a godly desire. ואז תישאר ראייתו זכה וברה. So what will be left is a refined and pure vision, כמו שכתבתי למעלה, like I explained above. שלא יפותה ולא ישיגהו חשק חומריותו, that he's not going to be enticed, and that the desire of materiality is not going to reach him. וינקה במעשיו מכל וכל, and he will be clean in his actions completely. והנה, על מידה זו haya David sameach ba'atzmo. And this is the attribute that David rejoiced over seeing in himself. Ve'omer, he says in Psalm 26, Erchatz b'nikayon kapai v'asoveva et mizbachacha Hashem. I will wash my hands with cleanliness, and I will encircle your altar, O God. Ki be'emet, rak mi sheyinake legamre mikol nidnud chet va'avon, hu haraui lirot et pnei hamelech Hashem. Because it is only the person who completely cleans himself from any vestige of sin, transgression, is a person who is worthy to see the face of the King, our Lord, God. Kizulatze, because without this, ein lo ela levush levosh ula hikalem milfana. Because without this, then he would only be humiliated and ashamed before him. Ma'amar Ezra HaSofer, like Ezra the scribe says in chapter 9, Elokai boshti v'nichlamti leharim Elokai panai elecha. My God, I was ashamed and humiliated to raise my face to you, my God. Vehine, vadai ki balacha rabahi, and obviously this is a very difficult job to do. Lahagia el hashlemut hamidah hazot, to achieve such a great attribute. Ki ha'averot hanikarot v'yeduot kalot hem lehishamer mehem. Because I don't know if it's so easy, but apparently he found it so easy that those sins which everyone knows, it's you can keep yourself from them. Kevan shara'atam geluya, because the evil of them is well known. Hadikduk hazeh hamitztarech nikiyut, but the precision that is necessary for cleanliness, hu hakashe yoter, that's something that's more difficult. Ki hora'at haheter mekase et hachet ukomo shekatavti, because person finds excuses, rationalizes why this is not a sin, and it becomes hidden to him, like I explained. V'hu ke'inyan masha amru zachronam levracha, and this is what our sages taught in Tractate Avodah Zarah. Averot she'adam dash ba'akevav sovavot oto b'sha'at hadin, that those sins that a person tramples upon with his heels, they will encircle him on the day of judgment, because he thinks, it's not a big deal, it's not something, right? And he falls into it. Valderech zeh amru zichronam levracha, and similarly they said in Baba Batra, Urubam bagazel umiutam ba'arayot v'chulam ba'avak lashon hara. Most of them in stealing, some of them with sexual sins, and all of them in the dust of gossip.
This is referring just to the public.
Yeah. yeah, generally people, right? Almost everybody falls
Populous.
into some way of stealing, and some people, Hashem Yerachem, get involved in sexual sins. But when it comes to what exactly the dust of gossip is, so for example, avak lashon hara includes saying something nice that's true about somebody in front of somebody who doesn't like him, and that person starts speaking against him,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
I,
Yes. I
I
mean, it's.
yeah, you don't like somebody or I don't like somebody, and you say, Jacob, this person is such a nice person. He did X, Y, and Z, which he really did. And
Mhm.
I say, he's not such a great person, and I might even mention something that he did wrong, which doesn't matter, and I shouldn't be talking about, right?
Yeah.
Then I
It's,
would be speaking lashon hara, and you would be guilty of avak lashon hara, the dust of gossip.
mhm. Right. So it's something that is very. It's not necessarily the people do it intentionally. It's just very hard to avoid. Just like the dikduk, to
Yeah,
really think through everything you say and to be clean of all those things is like everybody. It's like it's dust. It's everywhere. I guess it also fits that metaphor in terms of being dust and cleanliness.
yeah. Okay, where were we? Ki mipnei rov dakuto, because it's such a fine thing. Kol bnei adam nichshalim bo, that everybody finds themselves tripped up in it. B'ma she'ein makirin oto, that they don't even recognize it. Ve'amru zichronav l'bracha, and similarly, our sages taught in the Midrash on Lamentations. Lamentations Rabbati, chapter 15. I wouldn't know. שדוד היה נזהר ומנקה עצמו ניקיון גמור מכל אלה, that
Mm.
David was careful and cleansed himself in complete cleanliness from all of these things. ועל כן היה הולך למלחמה בביטחון חזק. And therefore he was able to go out to war with a great faith or trust in God. V'haya shoel, and he was able to ask of God in Psalm 18, Erdof oivai v'asigem, velo ashuv ad kalotam, that I will pursue my enemies and reach them, and I will not come back until they have been destroyed. מה שלא שאלו יהושפט עשה וחזקיהו, חזקיה לפי שלא היו מנוקים כל כך. And
Interesting.
Yehoshaphat, Asa, and Chizkiah, who were three kings, I guess. I know Chizkiah was. Jehoshaphat, I guess, also was. I don't even know who Asa was.
So it's interesting. I didn't know that this was mentioned here,
Yeah.
but I heard about it. I remember Rabbi Gottlieb mentioning this midrash. It basically means that David was he had complete trust in God that it didn't interfere with his own effort. Right? He said, "I will pursue them, I will capture them, and I will destroy them." Right? Because I trust God enough that I don't need to worry about that I can do that. But Yehoshaphat was only able to pursue them and capture them, but he wouldn't kill them because he said, "Well, I don't want to do it because then if I kill them, then I would tell myself, well, I don't need God. I did everything." He didn't have enough faith in himself or in God, right? And then Chizkiah was only able to pursue them, but he wouldn't catch them because if I catch them, then I would tell myself that I don't need God because I can do it all myself. So even more so, he didn't. He was like, I'll just. So it's an interesting. I like that story.
My guess is Rabbi Gottlieb has studied Mesilat Yesharim,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, this is not a midrash I was familiar with, and frankly, while I know a little bit about Chizkiyahu, I know very little about Yehoshaphat, and I know even less about Asa.
So
Okay,
okay.
Vehu masha amar hu atzmo betoch devarav, and this is what he said in among other words. Yigmaleni Hashem ketzidki kevor yadai yashiv li. God should give to me like my righteousness, for the purity of my hands will bring me back. So he seems to be very clear that his hands are pure. Va'amar od, and he said also, V'yashev Hashem li ketzitki kevor yadai leneged enav. Um, Similarly, I mean, it's almost the exact same verse until he says, right, God should give to me or return to me like my righteousness according to the purity of my hands against or before his eyes. V'hu habor v'hanikayon hazeh shezacharanu. So, and this purity, this is the purity and the cleanliness which we are talking about. Va'az chazar va'amar. And so he again says, Ki becha arutz gedud erdof oivai va'asigem. In you I will run after a gedud is a
Battalion.
yeah. I will pursue my enemies and reach them. Vahu atzmo amar od, and he also said, Mi ya'ale behar Hashem umi yakum b'makom kodsho neki kapayim ubar lavav. Who will ascend to the mountain of the Lord, and who will stand in the place of his holiness? The one who is clean of hands and pure of heart.
Bar levav is pure or like brave of heart. Pure.
Bar comes from borer.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
The omnam vadai. However, it's clear shahamida hazot kasha, that this is something that's difficult. Kiteva hadam chalash, because a person is weak by nature. V'libo nifte'al nekala, and his heart is seduced by leniency. Umatir la'atzmo hadavarim sheyuchal limtzo bahem kedei hata'a. And he will allow for himself those things that he can find a way of being mistaken.
Interesting. It mistaken. I thought you were gonna
Says
allow for
self-deception is how they translate.
It makes me think, because here he's saying like that somebody will allow himself to do something because he thinks, well, it will be fine to do. So this midah, this attribute, is to correct that. But then in Rambam, and probably here as well, we're going to talk about prishut, about separation. And that midah, the biggest mistake that you can do is tell yourself, well, I'm separating myself from the public because I want to be righteous. But actually, that's the wrong thing to do. So it's like you really need to, you're really pulled from two directions.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I really pointed out to Father Stephen in his book, Paul the Pharisee, was the term Perush, Pharisee. The only times it's actually used by the rabbis in the Mishnah, apparently all of them are negative. right?
Yeah, the Rambam
So
also treats
yeah,
it like, almost like a Nazir. A Nazir is, I mean, there's a negativity associated with it.
right. Yeah, there is. It's a,
Mhm.
you know, it's yeah. So Parshan, like Prishut, is in a sense a good thing. It can be, and it can certainly be a necessary thing,
Mhm.
but it's not something completely, you know, of the greatest type. There's a term the Rebbe used to use about Chabad, Spitz Chabad. So Spitz means nice, very good in Yiddish, right? So you would think Spitz Chabad, but the Rebbe would kind of, he would make fun of Spitz Chabad, the people who thought they were the best of Chabad.
Mhm.
Anytime he mentioned Spitz Chabad, he would he would kind of he would be digging a little.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Interesting.
you're Spitz Chabad. The Rebbe never called himself Spitz Chabad. It
Yeah.
should tell you something. Okay. ובוודאי שמי שהגיע לזאת המידה, and clearly someone who achieves such a attribute, כבר הגיע למדרגה גדולה, he's already attained a high level, כי בפני מלחמה חזקה עמד וניצח, that he was able to stand before a great war and be victorious. ונבוא עתה לבאר פרטי המידה הזאת. And so now we are going to come to explain the particulars of this attribute.
Interesting. So, first of all, I remember that I've been told that the first three levels, or however you want to call them, the first three attributes, those are the thing. I don't know if you said that also, but those are the things like that you can even deemly associate yourself with, or like consider like the things that are applicable to
Yeah.
any normal human being. Um, so this is the spitz of like the attributes, right? This is like, and then from there is like really getting to places that are even beyond
Yeah.
the grasp to an extent.
Yeah, but I mean, this is kind of the point of the ladder, right?
Yeah.
Like, the head of the ladder is in the heavens and the bottom is on earth.
Mm-hmm. Right.
RJ says one is never too late to study Torah. And Lynn says dust of gossip is so common with women in our culture. Well, the fact is, women practice what's called social aggression. So, like, that, when you, like, if you deliberately goad someone into saying something bad about someone else, right? That's already no longer the dust, right? And that's something that people do, right? They uh, they participate in, and that's not even gossip. I mean, that's already rechilut. Um, that's backbiting. But when you live in a society where such things are common, which they are, like, you can hide behind the dust of gossip when you are actually mamash a rachil, a backbiter, somebody who's going around destroying people. And that's one of the, I mean, speaking of sins hiding behind not sins. Yeah.
What do you mean sins hiding behind non-sins? Like how
I,
are you
I
hiding?
mean, so, okay. I mean, if I by mistake say to Ben, right, Donald Trump is so smart,
Mhm.
and And I don't know that Ben actually doesn't like Donald Trump so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I made a mistake, and Ben says something I didn't know about Donald Trump, a story I hadn't heard before, right?
Right.
Of one of his many bad things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody gets me to tell my story, which I tell a little bit too many times, of Donald Trump and his mistress and his wife fighting over each other. I've told this story way too many times, right? Okay, that's avak lashon hara. But let's say you deliberately want Jacob to tell that story, and you
Right.
say he's such a family man in front of me,
Mm.
right? In order to get me to tell that story about Trump again, right? That's already backbiting. That's already, I mean, if this applies, and there are many reasons why it might not apply in this situation, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why there's a whole book, lessons in Chofetz Chaim, and there are so many places that have shiurim and are very careful about it,
Mm-hmm.
and why the Chofetz Chaim found it so necessary to write a whole book and explain in at length the details of it, because
Yeah.
it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, I get what you're saying. I guess it's just but this is definitely a level of intentionality that marks the difference there.
Right, and it's difficult for anyone to know. Now, if you live in a society where no one's supposed to speak like that at all, right, where we're careful even with the dust of gossip, right, then somebody who's a backbiter realizes that that's not something that's going to work.
Yeah. Another thing. So this chapter is, I think we're probably not going to be able to start this one because it's long, and I probably need to cut it short. But I do have I have another thing to mention.
Yeah.
That it seems to me that so he was kind of talking about how this is similar to zihut, to vigilance, which is the first midah
Mm-hmm.
it has, or the people it's comparable, but obviously has its differences. So it almost seems to me like I'm trying to think of different analogies to make here, but zirut is somehow is like almost like using it's like a discerning things in a passive way, or just like taking in, like, okay, like you understand, you have your values set right, but you're not looking at things bedikduk, versus nikyut, where you're really activating your intellect and like really going into and really thinking through each thing, almost like I guess the difference between if you go through a daf beyun or bekiut, right? Like it's like you just go through it versus like you're deeply understanding every single thing and follow the thread throughout.
I would say really zehirut is kind of like acknowledging that there's a problem, right? Acknowledging I should actually live according to the laws of the Torah, that those things which people know that you shouldn't do, right? You recognize, and I'm not going to do those things which everyone knows is a sin.
Right. So
Once you've already achieved that, the next level is to stop deceiving yourself into thinking that things which really are sinful aren't sinful.
when are you saying that's nikyut?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to track also like the different milestones that a person goes through, because obviously zehut before the study of Torah brings to vigilance. Right, so study of Torah is like it's not enough in itself to it doesn't make a person vigilant on its own, right? You can study Torah and yet not be vigilant. I mean, that's the implication, right? But it leads to it. So there's again like on an like a decision point where you need to say, okay, somebody that wants to be Zair is someone that knows read the Torah, or like not really read, but like I mean like is understands the set of values that are taught in Torah, understands them, but also makes the decision to follow by them or have them judge his perception. That's not the right way to put it, but and then there is like a play there with zrizut, with alacrity or quickness in terms of it's the same thing but just like a different movement. But then acute is going like beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else he's going to say, but the difference he made between Zehirut and Zrizut was Zehirut is below Ta'aseh, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's keeping yourself from doing things you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And Zrizut is forcing yourself to do the things that you should be doing. And then he gets to Nikayon, Nikiyut, and he says that Nikiyut is really, I think the point he emphasized the most was not deceiving yourself, not allowing yourself to pretend that something is allowed when it really isn't.
Why would you be in that position before you get to Nikiyut? If you're vigilant, why would you still be in the mode of self-deception? Self-deception.
I mean, let's face it, we rationalize things all the time.
Or we follow something without thinking about it, right? Like, or I mean,
right. Well, I mean, look, if it's a first step to say I shouldn't do that which is wrong. And frankly, I think that's a very hard step to begin with at all, right? That was one of the things I used to always say. I'm not asking you to keep if you don't agree with such and such a rule of kashrut or whatever. Okay, let's not start with that. Let's start with the things you agree you shouldn't do. You want to tell me that, okay, basar b'chalav, whatever, right? That's but the things you agree with, right? Let's start there. Okay, you start there. But once you have made up your mind that you're going to not do things that are wrong, the next step is to stop deceiving yourself in terms of what is right and what is wrong. Because let's face it, when you're hungry, that piece of pizza looks a lot more kosher than when you're not hungry.
Right. Right. So you need to put a lot more effort to really. I mean, I guess that's exactly what he's saying, because he's putting two desires next to each other. He's saying Nikiyut is really about a desire.
Yeah.
Like you need to have a desire for Nikiyut so that it trumps the.
He says you have to have a desire for holiness and spirituality,
right,
so that it trumps your natural desire to be lazy and to go after physical lusts.
Right. Yeah, which again kind of like hammers in for me at the idea of being this being way more active than Zeut. Obviously, like you said, Zeut is very tough, but it's something that yeah, it's just something that is you can be complacent with, because you can either have it naturally because you were born to certain circumstances, or you can just feel comfortable in it because you've achieved something, and then you're in it and you don't think like, okay, like is comfortable enough, but it takes an effort to really actually clean something all the way through.
Yon God is pretending to actually know something, so we have to make sure he's not saying anything silly. Lynn says, listening shows me how I need to align with the will of God every time. Yeah, right, you do. And then Yon God says, you don't align with the will of God aligns you. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
Very pithy.
It's pithy, it's cute. Yon God really likes saying cute things without really caring whether they're true or not.
Which means that 1 out of 10 he will get it, like he would get it right and it will be marvelous. But otherwise,
yeah. Look, eventually Yon God, after listening to all of this Torah, he's going to become a great tzaddik, Yesod Olam. And he'll certainly know a lot more Hebrew than the vast majority of Jews out there. The osmosis is unstoppable. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think 11 is one of the longest chapters.
So I don't know what exactly I'm gonna do. I was gonna use this one. Because I like the black border, and I was gonna give that one to Rabbi Dov.
Wait, they have different borders?
They have different borders, but that's not the problem. The problem is this is where the hook is.
Wow, good thing that they sent they
sent two of them. So make sure you get your money back for this one.
I didn't pay for two.
You didn't pay for it. I'm gonna have to find a way of either moving this or I don't know if I can. If this opens up, this is weird. So
yeah,
because this is the one I want, because I like the black border a little bit better than the white border. But yeah, and I can't give this to Rabbi Wagner like this. So
because he would notice.
He would.
Maybe Yon God. Maybe you can give it to Yon God.
I could give it to Yon God. Yon God would put it up like this. That's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a lot of things get messed up, and then you realize actually that it's good that they got messed up. I've had a few things happen like that for me lately, and
the way they have this frame, you can't even open it up really. So you can't change. I don't know.
It's like an iPhone. You can't it requires it's like you have.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's better if I just try to put a hook here so I can do it, or if it's better if I try to get in there and move it. We'll see. We'll figure it out. You've given me a project.
Yeah, and now you need to update. You need updates too. We need updates.
Okay, are we done?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, people who joined us.